Nobody talks about dogs and cats when they're not right in front of them.
Yeah.
So we start talking about, oh, look at the dog right there, dog. And this isn't a dog show, you know. I'm trying to make a show that's bigger than dogs.
Yeah, yeah. But is anything bigger than the dogs?
It's a good point, you know. Dogs are kind of a big part of life. Who doesn't love a dog?
We can't be bigger than the program.
Yeah.
And the program includes dogs and cats.
You know, and that's why it's always a debate. Do I let him in? Do I not let him in? And over time, it's become no. Margot's okay. It's an interesting fight you're trying to battle, you know. Animals are... And I think she even knows we're talking about it right now. I think she's fighting...
She's trying to
She hears the word cat. She hears Margot. She's... And this is what my whole argument is. They know what they're doing. Like, they know how to manipulate you. They know what they're doing. They play emotional games. And that's what drives me crazy, especially cats, but dogs too. People think dogs are innocent. I'm telling you, your dog plays tricks on you. If it tears stuff up, it might just be tearing stuff up for your attention. Just because.
Might just be tearing it up just to see what it looks like on the inside.
That's
like it's
the question.
You never know.
You
never know. But they do express shame. And yeah, so.
They do express. Well, that's the other thing is how emotional animals are. Yeah, I think an animal has a really like a dog and a cat. I think probably dog even more so than has a really wide range of emotions. I think cats are emotional too, but in a much different way. But dogs feel like emotional in the same way as like when a dog cries. Oh, that's just like a sad thing. You never want to hear a dog cry and see a dog sad.
It's funny though, like they're distinct sounds. And I think even cats think about sounds in different ways.
Exactly. And cats kind of, all their sounds are the same. Like dogs kind of switch it up. Cats are just, well, I remember I read once as a kid, and I think this is wrong, that like dogs can do like 26 distinct sounds and cats can do like 1,000. And I think that was just something stupid I read when I was a kid. But I remember reading it and thinking that doesn't even make sense because that's just got to be some like random, like what do you define as a sound? Like I think dogs can make all kinds of sounds.
That's true.
And cats can make all kinds of sounds. Now the question then becomes, can cats make more sounds than dogs? I don't know.
I think cats make more sounds than we hear intrinsically within a household. So it's just like dogs, you're going to hear the whole range of stuff. It's the I found a mouse, there's a human, there's another dog. I do like that dog. I don't like that dog. I'm barking, I'm whining, I'm panting. And, you know, like you're going to run out at some point. With cats, there are different, like, hearing cats outside for the majority of my childhood because they were just like unclaimed cats in the hood.
Oh yeah, that's a different kind of cat.
You just hear the range of sounds that like there are categories of yelp.
Oh, yeah, there's like because it becomes like primal once they're outside. I feel like they just start making like it's when you hear like. You don't hear cats moaning and fighting and doing all that unless you see the cats in the streets struggling. Like that is a whole different life.
Really doing it, and some of them
cats
would choose
are made for that. Like that's what's interesting is that dogs don't. They're not designed to just live in the streets and fend for themselves. Cats are, and they really like they are better at that than they are living in your house.
But sounds for dogs have fewer, like a less wide range of utility than they would for cats in the wild.
Yeah, maybe
there's
that's
fewer
part
things
of it.
that they have to do, and they're less solitary. So it's like a solitary animal warns you, tells you to come closer, tells you how it's feeling. Like it's just different. Like the difference between even like a jungle cat and a wolf is pretty significant.
Oh, completely significant, yeah.
Especially if you're talking about the range of things, it would have to have a sound for it. Like what would a wolf's "I stepped on a spider" sound be?
Probably
yeah. Probably pretty similar to a bunch of other sounds though.
Yeah, whereas a cat's gonna have probably like a yeah, cats make my cat sometimes when she's running, she go and I like to tease her. So I'll make that sound back at her. That's a very funny sound. And as you said that too, it made me think like what would make me more scared if I saw a wolf or if I saw a mountain lion? And the answer is so obviously like a big jungle cat. Like a jungle cat's going to scare me more than a wolf every time. And I don't know, maybe it's just because they're natural hunters. Like I think of cats as like hunters and murderers. Yeah, they kind of are.
They are.
If you see a cat with a mouse, you know, it all makes sense.
Yeah, it's a wider range of of like predatory ecosystems. But like with a wolf, I mean, they just be big. We think of wolves like huskies, and they're much bigger than that. But at the same time, like Mike Tyson had a pet tiger, but I don't know nobody else who could do that.
It's like, well, it's kind of I feel like it has to be like having a pet monkey, where you're just signing up for the risk of having the pet. Like this could go wrong at any time, and the monkey's very strong in the worst way, and you won't be seen in a positive light when it happens. Everybody will say, "Well, they got a pet lion. Well, they got a pet monkey." Everyone's gonna think you're the idiot when the monkey eats your face or whatever it is. Yeah. A lion, that's just like. Oh my God, I've seen so many videos of like people mingling with lions, and I never know how to feel, because I always feel like it is a giant cat, and it is kind of sweet that you could have that relationship with a giant cat, and you know, it's like kind of signifies the beauty of the soul and consciousness and all these things. Like, oh well, we look at cats, mountain cats, whatever they are, as these predators, when really they're just as human as a house cat. But then there's the fact that like they are ridiculously strong, and they could just change their mind, and it's in their nature to just change their mind.
Eventually they will change their mind. That's the other thing. It's not like, it is an inevitability, and that's what makes it so different. It's like nobody has a pet lion who is just always domesticated. After a certain point, you're just supposed to release that animal into the wild, because that's what it is.
Is that what it is with lions? You have to release it? That would make a lot of sense.
Most of the time it's like wildlife conservatories, or it'll be whatever.
I remember when I was younger, and I'm sure you could find this pretty easy, but it's like a guy who reunites with his lion that was released in the wild, and the lion recognizes him and they hug. And like, I never thought about it in that way. Like, why did he release it in the first place? You know, like, why did he think he couldn't keep it? But you probably feel guilty, and you know better while you have the lion in the house. You're like, this is not right.
If it's a pet, and outside of that, it's just like, if you were trying to return it to the wild, then that was always the point.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't really feel guilty. It's just like, is it time? You might feel guilty for releasing it, and you might feel guilty for holding it, but it's just like, it's a lion.
I wonder if you would face the same problem as like if you have a bird that's kept inside and then you let it go. Like, I thought I've heard that they could die because they didn't grow up in the right environment. Like, I wonder if that would happen to the lions
if you raised a lion as a pet, it would stand out like a sore thumb in nature, I think, beyond a certain point.
That's what I would think.
But also, like, a lot of development is completely irrelevant to how a lion would live its life as an adult. So there's with birds it's a little bit different, but also most of the time that answers the question of why it would have to be a conservationist instead of being because you have to prepare the animal to go back into the wild. If you're going to release the animal into the wild, that's kind of
I know that with monkeys, they were doing it where they would put them like to protect. Well, I guess it was probably just to protect them, but they would have reserves. I think the best thing you could do is have a reserve where they're all kind of together in their own ecosystem. That would probably be what a conservationist would say, I would presume, because that's the only way you can shelter them. And then you have to consider not even just animal predators, but human predators that are in whatever area you're releasing them in, because they think humans are friends. So
some of them would. And that's the thing, is like, you at least get rid of the fear of humans, which can or can't be useful depending on the context.
Yeah. Well, hello, folks, and welcome to episode 247 of Ruse Radio. Who is our special guest here today?
I am Seven.
Oh, Seven.
That is VII, 7 in Roman numerals.
How did you come up with such a name? What does 7 mean?
7 is a lot of things to me that ended up being more things later on, but I was in a jam and needed to pick a rap name, and it was something I had thought about, seeing on paper. I was like, okay, that could work. But 7 is the biblical number of completion. I have 7 letters in my first and middle names. The street that I grew up on, the sum of the numbers that make up the name of the street, add up to 7. And there's a ton of reasons why I ran with it, but it just felt right in the moment. And it being the biblical number of completion, there being 7 days in a week, 7 letters in a name, all of these things. I was like,
when you say biblical number of completion, what would that mean exactly?
It's explained in Revelations, but it is a number that is kind of iterated throughout the Bible. On the 7th day, God rested. And because of that, or at least iterating from within that, in that context, it's the number of completion. It signifies completion, a seventh time, 7 years, it's not exactly numerology, but it's as close as Christianity gets to that in many cases.
What is truly fascinating about such an explanation to me is the amount of thought, the amount of intention. We all need to lead our lives with such intention. We all need to imagine a world where everything we do is driven by a purpose, that we actually have a core thesis that we're moving towards. Those are the people that inspire me. Those are the people that keep me going, the people that I feel like have a reason for their madness, a method to it all. And I want to keep showing you those people. I want to keep bringing you those people. And I want to keep reinvigorating the purpose, the light that is within you, and keeping you moving, keeping you going. So how do I do that? Well, I can do it by continuing to do this, by keeping on doing this, by making these episodes. But we're doing 10 episodes a month. That's one every 3 days. I'm crazy. I have madness. There is a method to my madness, but if you want to make this madness a little easier to maintain the madness that maintain the madness that requires my methods, you want to do that? Well, folks, the way you do that is Patreon. $5 a month, the price of a coffee, the price of a beer at the bar, and you help this show grow. You help us go to bigger and better places. I love doing this, and I want to do it bigger and better than ever, and the only way that is possible is with your support. It's $5 a month, guys. All right, it's a cheap little, just a drop in the bucket. And you get to be a part of this. You get to be a part of the village that we're building, and it takes a village to do something great. Now, that's awesome. That's all roses and sunshine. But let me tell you, it's deeper than that. There's more to the Patreon than just supporting this show. You get exclusive Patreon content. 1, you get to hear my conversations that nobody else is ever going to hear. They're only going to be there behind that paywall. 2, you get to hear my music early before anybody else ever hears it. 3, you get to hear exclusive songs no one else is ever going to hear. It's only on the Patreon. And 4, you get your name on the screen right here, right now, and at the end of every single episode. All that stuff is a token of my appreciation for your appreciation. And like I said, you guys get to be a part of this by doing such a thing, because truly, I need your support. What I'm doing is crazy, and it takes a ton of effort, and the only way I can continue to do it at the levels of which I'm doing it is with your support. Now, let's say you can't afford Patreon, you don't get $5 to put away every month. Well, you're watching me, you're listening to me right now. That's support enough. So please, just make sure you like the video, you comment, you subscribe. Just engaging with this content lets me know that I'm doing something right. So please make sure to always do that. I see you guys. I read the comments. I look at everything. Ruse sees all. Big Brother is always watching. So yeah, just please continue to do that. Please continue to support. If you can do the Patreon, it helps me more than you would ever know. A small fraction of you guys joining that Patreon could change my life, and I mean that. So yeah, now let's get back to the 7 origin story. And so I just connected with you, that number, and you ran with it from when? When was this?
I was 18, so that was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, 18. Nice. What were you doing anything else, like as a, not hobby, but do you have any other skills before that, like outside of music?
I wrestled. I was a national champion in high school. I won a national title in an Olympic style in college, so I wrestled all of college.
Oh, nice.
So
music's a whole different thing, though.
Yeah, music's something entirely separate. But for most of my life, from the time I was 10 until I was 25 or 26, I wrestled and did it in all 3 styles: the collegiate style that America only does, and then both Olympic styles, freestyle and Greco-Roman.
And why'd you want to wrestle?
My dad was a wrestler, but also it was just, I'm not tall and I'm pretty athletic, so I was gonna figure out what I was gonna do at some point.
Is wrestling good for short people? I never thought about that. It's the short people wrestling connection. That's got to be something, because other sports there's like a height limit.
It kind of depends. I mean, like, basketball isn't good for short people. It doesn't necessarily mean wrestling is.
Yeah.
In the same way that soccer can be good for short people, but tall people can play soccer.
Yeah, right.
There are different advantages and kind of like just variables that have to be considered based on body type within the sport. There are all types of builds, and demography has changed so much over time too that like even the average wrestler is hard to define.
How so?
The Hispanic population in wrestling is the fastest growing population in wrestling by far.
Oh, really?
But wrestling's a pretty white sport in its origin, and there are also a lot of black people in wrestling. Like,
Yeah.
there's
And it's probably been very popularized over the last 10 to 20 years, I would have to imagine, just because of the exposure it's gotten. I think like people look at wrestling and fighting sports a lot differently than they used to.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, within that span of time, we've seen the development of the UFC.
Yeah. And nobody realizes that was nothing. There was nothing like that before.
And I mean, like, there were other. Obviously, there's Pride. There's there's other. There've been other organizations where you have the ability to fight another grown man however you want.
Yeah.
Based on a certain set of rules, but within wrestling in particular, there's been a trend toward high-level wrestlers being the most, or at least the quickest to be comprehensive MMA fighters.
Yeah.
And then there's also the connection of wrestling to the WWE being made more obvious.
Yeah.
So kids want to go one way or another, and there's money in the sport that there wasn't before, but there's more money to be made outside of the sport that gives people that base. And it also, like, football coaches love wrestlers. So a lot of the uptick in that has been tracing with football's, of course, continuous budgeted increase in popularity. But coaches are constantly saying, we want wrestlers because they're hardworking guys. We want wrestlers because they understand the basics of leverage, footwork, things like that. And it's proven to be true. So there's a lot of reasons why wrestling's growing the way it has. But I think the biggest thing is just a concerted effort toward trying to make it a more exciting sport. I wouldn't exactly say it's working, but we're closer than we've ever been to having it be something that's, like, widely marketable, which has good and bad.
Yeah. I mean, what would it be? How would you make wrestling a widely marketable thing? That's a good question. Because I don't think it's like a glamorous sport. Like, it's not a sport that I think gets the same, like, recognition that a football's ever gonna get or a soccer's ever gonna get.
No.
It's much different in its nature. Even kind of like it's much different than something like boxing or UFC because it seems more tame when you compare it to those things. Like, when you're watching people roll and all of this, it's more of like an intellectual thing going on, in my opinion, than if you're watching people throw punches. Like, it helps if you know what you're looking at. It's like listening to jazz. Like, if you know what they're doing, then it's much more interesting. So I think it is like it falls into this niche category. I'd wonder how you would make it big. There's got to be a way because I think that there's got to be people that shine in that community that just don't get recognized because it's a niche community in a sense.
And honestly, it makes transitions to other communities difficult. I can speak from my own experience in saying, like, you accrue a fan base and or a support base. I don't even think it's like reasonable to frame it as a fan-based paradigm, but you accrue a base of supporters in one place. Yeah. And they only are familiar with you insofar as you do that one thing, and they might like the way you do it or they might not. I think the answer to that question kind of lies in how wildly popular professional wrestling is, because people aren't willing to be. I think the identity of wrestling that's permeated it for the better part of the last, I would say, 40 years has been antithetical to the idea of showmanship and, like, the individual being manifested through personality rather than how they choose to exercise the technique.
In professional wrestling in particular.
No, I'm saying I think amateur wrestling is that way now, contrasted with professional wrestling. I think we can see wrestling is as popular as it is because of showmanship, because of gamemanship, because of storylines, because of the ability to, like, combine technique with pageantry. But, like, kids at home are not thinking of that as an intellectual exercise. You don't have to think about what you're doing when you figure out how to perfectly execute an RKO on your brother. It's not, and wrestling could be very similar if people were willing to view the personalities within wrestling as being as interesting as they are. And I think there are wrestling influencers now who have never wrestled at a high level because they love the sport. And that makes a lot of people mad because they can get 500,000 followers just showing people what they think about it. Yeah. And nobody else did it. And so the answer really is just people have to be willing enough to recognize that what they're doing is entertaining to somebody, and to sell the entertainment aspect of it. And people are starting to.
People who are genuinely skilled, because it's gonna. If you don't do that, it will be these people who don't really understand it.
It'll be anybody.
It'll be anybody.
It'll be anybody, and their names will be anything. And
yeah,
I think a lot of people, because they haven't exactly figured out how to blend those things yet, they think people who have a large following are the best wrestlers, because kids who see people with a large following think that those people are the best at what they do,
right?
Or at showing people what they do, or selling people what they do, or whatever.
Yeah. That's the only thing that number could mean.
And so, like, it puts unfair pressure on kids who would probably be better if they weren't influencers.
Yeah.
But also outside of that, they're influencers who are able to skip the line in front of people, one, because they aren't doing the work that people are doing to be Division I wrestlers, Division II, Division III, Olympic, world level wrestlers. And it's a grueling enough process to have to do without figuring out how to present that to somebody. So it's kind of, it's a catch-22 in that, like, if you're actually doing the work, nobody should care about your personality. Not that they shouldn't care about your character, but it's like, all I care about when I'm watching wrestling is, like, how well people wrestle and how well they carry themselves. I don't care what they did on Tuesday. I'm not asking who their best friends are. It really isn't that crucial to me. But that will be what it is if you generate that kind of buzz. So on the one hand, it's hard to be somebody who's really good, who's also able to be, I guess, marketable. But given the NIL market and the fact that people are starting professional, like, freestyle wrestling leagues, RAF being one backed by the UFC, members of the WWE, and then a couple partners in, like, Illinois wrestling. Real American Freestyle is the name of the league. There's like 2 or 3 happening at the same time. So they're kind of trying to direct the fan base of people who like the UFC or like the WWE to wrestling through a funnel.
Freestyle, is that just the name, or does that mean
that's
something?
one of the Olympic styles. So there's freestyle and Greco-Roman.
Okay. And what does freestyle mean? Just anything?
Not exactly anything, but it's the widest range of techniques you can use. It's kind of hard to explain, but Greco is upper body only, and freestyle is like the combination of Greco-Roman techniques and folk style techniques, to be simple.
Okay.
And then folk style is a style that everybody wrestles in college and nobody else wrestles anywhere.
Okay.
So
it's like
quintessentially
academic papers. You only write them at school and then you never write them again.
Yeah, except for the fact that you write academic papers at schools that are not in America, and you only wrestle folk style at schools that are in America.
Yeah.
So, German students still have to turn in essays, but they're not wrestling folk style.
Interesting. So, yeah, and that would bring attention to the sport by attracting people from the other things.
They're funneling things.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do. And it's not working, but I think we're getting to a point where guys who are good at wrestling are competing with guys who are good in the UFC, and it's 2 different games.
Yeah.
Especially wrestling, recognizing that the guys who are good at wrestling who are in the UFC are not as good of fighters as the guys who have established themselves within the UFC.
Yeah.
But, like, we got really good college prospects, so it's going to be what it is. So they're dealing with how you functionally manage 3 buckets of fans. And that's why I would say it isn't exactly working yet. It will work, I think. But there's more to it than just creating leagues and leagues that have attention.
That's an interesting way to do it, though. Like, to drive people to the sport is to appeal to that kind of thing.
We have tried to do wrestling leagues like every 8 years for the last 30. I was at matches for wrestling leagues before I started wrestling, and they had comic books and everything. I think they're closer now than they've ever been because they have the combination of influencers, UFC fighters, some active, they got high school wrestlers now, and they've got some former college wrestlers, some of the best guys in the world. So they're pulling people who actually are interested in wrestling in one place. But people, it seems just based on the matches, people are confused about whether they want to wrestle like really high level matches, which aren't really all that high scoring all the time, or really entertaining matches, because they still have to hold on to that wrestling pride.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, the identity of the wrestler that's been established over the course of the past 40 years is so antithetical to being refined for entertainment. I think it'll take 10 years of trying that.
Yeah.
And these kids being influencers. But there's college freshmen who are nasty at putting together their own social media, but also are highly recruited.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it takes, at least in this climate.
Interesting. And they would still have to, it's just like any other craft where they're going to have to do it for a long time to even get to that point where they would have that type of status. So it's going to take a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. My generation of wrestlers was the first that was really like allowed to be influencers. I mean, we really were the first few with social media.
Yeah.
And so like how we did that whenever we did it changed over time. But now there are kids in college who've got hundreds of thousands of followers who are advertising products, who are, you know, like they do have a ton of eyes on them. And so capturing that while recognizing that like that can't really motivate you to be better necessarily is something that's it's tough to balance because there are so many different just facets of identity for a human, let alone a wrestler. And there are so many like intangibles that you want from a wrestler that aren't necessarily like what you want from an influencer.
Yeah. So what would make a good wrestler then?
I think good wrestlers, what recruiters look for are people who are technical, tenacious, coachable, and willing to do things that suck a whole lot. That's pretty much it. If you can do the things that you hate the most in life, you have the most potential to advance.
Okay.
And I think they're going to put you through the ringer to see how tough you are regardless.
When you say that, do you mean like in training?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes in scheduling. Like, if you're wrestling in the Big Ten, most of those guys automatically qualify for nationals because they're wrestling each other all the time, and they've been the best teams historically. And so, like, if you just have your dual season, even if you only schedule the other teams, you're going through the ringer.
Yeah.
You're going to see nationally ranked guys all the time, but then add in tournaments and add in out-of-conference duels. And the shape of competition doesn't really change too much for those Big Ten teams, recognizing that they're still going to have strength of schedule foremost.
I see.
So they're going to put you through the ringer either way.
Yeah.
No coach is going to look at a tough team and be like, no, I don't want my team to wrestle them because it looks bad on them. But I think the tougher teams are the way that they are because sometimes they grind really hard and other times they have the ability to develop wrestlers based on who they are.
Yeah, and you're kind of looking for that when you're recruiting too, is like the work ethic of the person, like looking through the person in a way.
Yeah. Work ethic, consistency, stability, grades.
Yep, yeah.
There's certain things that you're looking for, and leadership is usually the thing for individual recruitment. If you're looking at a team, then that dynamic can kind of change depending on which wrestlers are close or which wrestlers have similar grades or whatever. But in large part, what they're just looking for are people who will work hard when things get hard.
Yeah.
And rise to the occasion as opposed to just going through it.
Yeah. So how does wrestling work once you're outside of high school? Do you look for a league? Do you do it in college? Like, how did you keep on doing it once you moved on outside of high school?
I wrestled in college, yeah.
In college, okay. And then just carrying forward outside of that.
Yeah, I wrestled 2 years on the senior circuit, too. I graduated into the pandemic, so it was a little break. But
that's fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome timing, yeah.
Yeah. And then NIL was the next year when we wrote cease and desist for people trying to use me to market stuff the year before, so it would have been nice to get a little bit of money.
What, just like throwing up an ad with your face on it?
We'll talk about it one day, man.
That's fun.
We'll talk about it one day.
I pray to get famous enough to where people use me to market their products. And once that happens, I know I've made it. I can call my mom. I can say, Mom, they're using my likeness. I think I'm famous now.
Yeah, that's. I appreciate that as a standard, but
it's a positive outlook.
As a person who has been in that position, it's not all this cracked up.
That's
not fame at all.
No, dude. I mean, I say all of this in jest, obviously.
Of course.
Dude, like, don't use me to sell your boner pills or whatever it is.
Hell.
Because my grandma's gonna call and say, "What have you been doing?"
I do want to be the new do-rag man, though. I think Bow Wow, he had the do-rag market on lock for a long time, But I was in Miami, and I was looking for a do-rag in a beauty supply store. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see no Bow Wow. I didn't see a single Bow Wow do-rag in there. It was just a different dude. So like, if that can come with time, if that spot's been taken,
I think it's been long enough.
It's long enough that I can do it.
I think so. And people would be like, what is that? And they'll be like, oh, you don't remember? And it would have that appeal, that like that old school appeal. I think that's what would make it work, is the fact that it's been long enough. I think people would think of it like a throwback thing. Exactly. And then they would just become non-ironic over time. It would start ironically and it would become real.
Then I'm cornering the do-rag market. That's how it works.
And I know that do-rags are cool. Like, I don't care what anybody tells me. Do-rags are cool and they're useful. If you're sweating, they help.
The dude on the do-rag usually is not that cool, all things considered. Like, he might be a cool person, but like I don't know any of them by name except Bow Wow. That's my point. I could be the new do-rag.
Yeah, and you could be a proper representative.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I would probably be some kind of ignorant in a way that would lose me the do-rag viability
I could
quickly.
Maybe do the do-rag, but I don't think it would be good.
Yeah, I don't think you should do that.
I don't think I should.
I personally, in this climate,
I don't think I should.
In this climate, I think fewer people. I might have to say this as a broad declaration. In 2026, I'm gonna look into the camera when I say this. In 2026, white men, please do not wear a do-rag. Please just don't put it on.
How about dreads? We locks. Have dreads.
I know white men with locks follow me. So please don't take this personally. I don't hate you. It's just your hair not supposed to do that.
You know, I've thought about it just because I know it would get me attention. That's the only reason I would ever do something like that. Is because I know it would look so ridiculous. People would have to talk about it.
And there are just easier ways to get attention than getting the locks too. It's just like, I know most people are not doing it for attention entirely. And
yeah, so they like it. They actually like it.
That's exactly why I'm saying if you do that, you will end up looking like Kevin Durant in a matter of at 6 to 8 years. I don't care how well you keep it. And don't tell me it's for Vikings either. Don't do that. Don't do that. We are not going to have a cultural anthropology conversation about locks.
It's just there's better ways to pull it off. Like I don't think it looks as cool as the guy who has it thinks it looks. That's like I think what is always happening. It's like the guy who's doing it thinks it looks way better than it does because he hasn't had enough people tell him that it's just not working. Like there's a better look for you, dude. And I think like if you go that anthropology route, it's probably literally our primal brains like going, that doesn't line up.
Yeah, don't do that.
That doesn't add up.
We can't do that for very long is what ended up happening in the cultural conversation if you think about anything that's ever happened in the Western world. But it's like, my thing is like, the only way that works is if you don't wash your hair. And like when I get a retwist, I get my hair washed. I enjoy that happens. It's a great part of the process. Shout out my loctician. If you do that the first time you get locks as a person whose hair does not grow that way, they're just going to come apart. You got to do it again.
Oh.
There's no way.
Like come apart immediately?
How is it going to hold?
Yeah.
My locticians tell me all the time that my hair is great for locks because my curl pattern is going to hold itself.
Huh.
If your hair is straight, it's not supposed to lock. You're fighting nature, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you're grown. Do what you want. But I asked you earlier, and I implore you now. It really wasn't a question. I said don't do it. I shouldn't be like that.
What's it called when gridlock, like maybe like we could call it Operation Gridlock, you know, something like that.
Nah, dreadlock out. That's what it is. You can't do it.
Dreadlock out. Yeah, that's pretty
good. Some things.
Dreadlock down.
Yeah, that's might be a good Kanye remix. I might have to run with that one.
I mean, I'm glad that you're saying it. We're addressing the controversial issues today here on the show because I think that's a very astute take from you. I think that's a good thing that people need to hear. I think there's a level to cultural appropriation where you just don't look cool anymore. Like you've passed the point of like style into like now you just kind of look now something's wrong, and you need friends to guide you the right way.
And if not friends, me. Look at me. I did it again. I'm trying to tell you, don't do it. You already did it. There's other stuff you could do. The haircut would look just as good.
We should just stick to rap.
You won't get traction alopecia. Like it's really fine. It's really fine. And like draw your lines wherever you draw them, but I know where I draw mine. And as a person whose opinion is requested in this moment, please help me. It's hard enough. I'm not going to say much more.
Yeah. Well, you know, being in the rap world, you'll see white guys with dreadlocks. That's something that'll happen.
I've seen white guys with everything.
Yeah.
I make rap music.
I think the rap world in particular, you'll see white guys do some strange things. I think when you're in that realm, white guys start doing interesting activities.
I've seen everybody do interesting activities. But
yeah.
Yes, if we're gonna corner this demographic conversation, absolutely.
As a white, I can confirm it gets wicked.
It get wicked over there. I'm not white. I don't know what it's like.
It's like we drink Four Loko and Red Bull and shit, Mountain Dew, and we just get excited and do stupid things.
See, but that's a very specific demographic. Those are also people who get hype about new Call of Duty commercials, and they love Eminem's music. And I am a fan of Eminem as well.
Yeah.
But it's a cultural cross-section wherein each of those things has a Venn diagram that is just one circle when combined.
Yeah.
Combined in any iteration of two of those things. And again, I love the white people in my life, and I know the white people in my life won't take offense to this, but also none of them at the present moment have locks, and for that, I am grateful.
Yeah, you gotta take what you can get.
Now, yes, right now, and that's why I'm asking for just a bit more. But
just a bit more, yeah. When you. Because you wrestle and you rap. So when you started rapping, you were already wrestling. What made you want to do that, or at least finally move into that?
I had been writing for a long time. I started taking piano lessons when I was young. Didn't really like the formal structure of it, but because I knew there was something to it, I just wanted to keep learning the things that I thought were cool. Like, I knew why I wanted to take the lessons. And once I wasn't getting that, I didn't want to take them anymore.
Structured how? Like, what was the problem?
I don't learn things like everybody else. And so if you're trying to advance me through a curriculum like other people, it's not going to work the same way.
Okay.
I don't learn. I'm not a fast starter, but I learn really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think assuming because I don't start fast that I'm not going to get to the point that anybody else would get to has proven to be an erroneous assumption through most of my life. But
yeah, I've always hated standardized testing because I think it's a stupid way to measure intelligence because they're timed. That's always been the stupid thing to me. It's like, how if you put me on a time limit and I take more time than this other guy, that doesn't mean the other guy's smarter than me.
No.
That means he's better at like working within a time limit than me, and that's all you're proving.
You're proving that you can operate within the constraints and that you understand, I guess, how to mobilize those constraints. But I've always been a strong standardized tester, and I still don't feel like it demonstrates anything other than viability to do that thing again.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're asking me whether that qualifies or disqualifies a person from an institute of higher learning, I would say circumstantially. But it's just like in many of those cases, that will be your exam environment. Like, it just will feel like a standardized test. And so, like, yeah, you're absolutely right about that, in that, like, how those things, I think there's a way for everybody to reach within reason, of course, whatever outcome it is that they see themselves having. It just might take more or less work than they think. And in that case, like, I wasn't willing to have a formal structure take longer, because I knew what I wanted to learn and I knew what I didn't want to learn. And I knew that even if it looked like I was skipping steps, I would have to do the other stuff eventually. But I know my first piano teacher, there were people my age who learned for at least quicker than I did. And so when I taught myself later, I started playing again when I was like 13. I started with Furley's because I knew I could play by ear. And knowing that that was a valid form of instruction, that wasn't something that wasn't knowledge that I had as early as I was interested. So I just figured it out eventually. I was like, yo, I think I can do this, and I could. And from that, I kept making my own stuff and learning how to play stuff. And then eventually I started learning how to play stuff and sing. And that whole time I had been writing raps, and I started writing poetry. And then I did spoken word club in high school. And I went to OPRF, which has one of the best spoken word programs anywhere in the country.
Were you just going by your regular name with all that?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't releasing anything. I did spoken word in high school.
Okay.
And I was wrestling at the same time. And the spoken word coaches are some of the best everything anywhere. Peter Kahn, who ran our spoken word club back then, Mr. Kahn is the best, but he ran our spoken word club like a master of fine arts program, and he would hunt you down in the school if he saw any potential in you. So I remember my sophomore year, freshman and sophomore year, we were required to do a poetry unit at OPRF, and they picked the poems that they liked the most, and they would take them to judges. From that, they would go to an assembly, and from that, they would basically award people first, second, and third. So I made it to the final round my sophomore year, and one of my best friends, Van, was already in spoken word club at the time. They went last, I went first, we tied, and from that point on, I was like, all right, I think I'm cool on it. I did what I wanted to do. I competed in poetry, and Mr. Khan was not having it. He would find me at lunch. He would talk to my coaches, and eventually they told him that I was finishing my lifts early. So he was like, they said, you can come right after you finish your lift for the end of spoken word club. And I was like, all right, man. And from that point on, I fell in love with it. But I had never seen so much revision on words that I knew I was using well, but was not using for the purpose of like rendering an image. And the thing that he taught me, and all of us above all, was that we had to focus on specific incidents. And that transformed my rap writing. It continues to transform my poetic writing, and it informs so much of what I understand about like artists being useful, not useful necessarily, but effective in how they utilize different storytelling techniques, or how they even like structure verses and stay consistent with a topic, or not, like the ways they choose to do that, like what mastery gives you the ability to do in the way of subversion. But starting there, I knew that I was going to keep writing, and I didn't know what or how, but I've always been a strong writer, so I wrote every way I could. I was going to creative writing classes in college. I was going to poetry classes in college I definitely didn't need, and still was advancing that interest of piano kind of in the background. And one of the other spoken word coaches, who is now the head teacher of spoken word, is also a rapper. Maybe you've heard of him. A lot of people in the city have. His name's Def C.
Oh, no, I don't know.
He's 6'5" white guy, boomiest voice, and some of the craziest rhyme schemes and just images anywhere. He's had individual years that were some of the best in the underground world. I think he's one of the best rappers in the country for sure, but definitely one of the highest potential underground acts that the country has to offer, and that one of the biggest underground scenes, which Chicago boasts. He's definitely one of the stars among that. But he was one of our teachers. And he had an offshoot of spoken word club called Hip Hop Wing, where functionally it was the same boot camp that poetry was, but in a formal rap context. And he had this thing he would do where we would walk in, he would be playing a beat, we would have to freestyle, and then we'd break down a verse, kind of study it, whichever one he picked or one that we brought in. And then at the end, he would play a beat that he chose in advance, and we would sit for 16 minutes, and we would have to try and get a 16-bar verse out. And, you know, most people were getting 16s because they had been there for a while. Some guys would get 8, some guys would get nothing. But I was writing like 50 bars every time I did that.
Okay.
And so eventually he was just like, at the end of it, he was like, do you think that your understanding of music theory helped you understand rap to a more significant degree? And I was like, I think so. Like, I get cadence because I get how to play through rhythm, but I also knew sheet music and structure well enough to tell you how many bars I'm rapping, and also like have a good idea of what BPM we're rapping at. And he was like, you haven't recorded, and you should record. I see that you're on the fence about it, but you absolutely should record music. So I was like, okay, kind of listen to him like I did the initial.
This whole thing makes me think of, like, for one, okay, this is funny because it's kind of like Good Will Hunting when he writes the thing and he like sees what the guy wrote and he's like, no, I'm telling you, you need to do this. But it also makes me think, if you've ever heard the quote, like, the best rapper ever is just in somebody's basement and nobody knows he's a rapper. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard that, but this is what this reminds me of, because it's like you have to have so many people tell you, like, no, I'm telling you, you're good at this. Please do this.
Dude.
Like your teacher that chased you down. That's so funny.
And it's funny you say that. Like, I obviously did a little bit of research coming up because I don't like being unprepared. And there's a rap you posted from when you were 14 that is just so, like, it's technically solid, especially for somebody that age, which I'm assuming is the reason you posted it.
I wonder which one you saw. Do you remember what it was?
It was over, I think it was Yonkers beat.
Oh, yeah, Yonkers. So, yes, that was around like probably a year or two into when I was making music. That's got to be... Because I said, yeah, because everybody was doing the me in 2016 thing. And so I was trying to find something of me in 2016. And I ended up just being able to find like some of those videos. And those were all from 2014. So I thought that was even better. Like, I'll do them 2 years better than that.
Right.
But yeah, it was over the Yonkers beat. And it's interesting. I'll look back at that stuff. And I think that I've always technically been very good. I've been very good at like placing words. But it's still like stylistically you'll change so much over time. So I can see all these choices I made that I would never make now. But I still think technically it's so sound. Like all my earliest stuff is so technically good. I can't even believe, and I knew when I was making it, like, dude, this is crazy. But looking back now, it's like, dude, I was 14.
Yeah.
So it's even crazy.
But it's like, so many people I know have experiences like that lend themselves naturally to like exploring what that is.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of like akin to finding your function in life. Like when you can really zero in on something that you know you're good at, there's nothing more gratifying than that in my mind. Like, it makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. And like, it's like every time I write, it's that same thing. It's like I'm always working towards something bigger. And I think everybody needs that. It doesn't have to be music, but it's got to be something. Like, everybody needs to be able to do that somehow.
And I think like it does take a lot of people nudging you, but it also just takes being obsessed enough with it to not know why you're doing it.
Right.
To end up at a point where you've done it enough that once you decide to do it, you can be confident in what you're doing. And I've never had to second guess how well I rap. Never a day in my life. But I also had been writing loose verses for so long, just loose 16s, just posting them on Twitter, and people would be like, "You wrote this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Just posting whatever I was thinking of, playing on piano, back when Instagram was 15 seconds, then 30, then a minute. Like, whatever it was in the moment, I was so focused on doing it publicly so that it was clear that I was progressing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. I just knew that it was something that I wanted people to understand was part of my identity. Like, if I see a piano, I'm probably going to play it. You shouldn't be surprised by that because you've seen me do it 100 times.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's things like that I just feel like the manifestation of your identity through these things is so important, even if it's like you're 14 and you don't know why you're choosing the words you're choosing.
Yeah.
But I know that I've listened to so many great rappers do enough things that I could point it out. And once I knew that I could employ those things, that's when I knew, all right, it's time to get going. But like, songs I was putting out, it was verses I wrote when I was like 9 or 12 that I put out when I was 20. And people were like, yo, that's crazy. I'm like, bro, I wrote that before I went through puberty. And having that experience iterated, it was just like, it's validating to have a place for that to go.
Yeah.
But it was also validating to be able to create it when it had no place. It's just like, that's why you always got to keep the stuff you make. Because like, if you're better one day, or you're more ready, or you're whatever.
And you don't know the value anything holds. Like, I always think about that with like just anything. And like, music kind of is a natural way of seeing that if you're somebody who makes music, because it becomes a time capsule, because you can always go back and listen to it, and it places you in the mind state you were in at that time. And that's a very weird thing to have, like, personally, because it's like, so if you did it well, it's such a time capsule. It's like, oh, that's me in 2016, that's me in 2020, like that was what I was doing and where I was at, because you captured that. And it could be, again, it doesn't have to be music, it could be anything, but it's so and I think things build over time in ways that you don't even realize. Like, you don't realize you're building something, and that's kind of like until it's already all done, and then you go back and look and you can see all the little things that accumulate along the way, but it's so hard to see the present for what it is. As a place between the past and the future.
I would argue that the people who are able to do it the earliest and for the longest are the people who have the clearest picture of what they want to do with what they're doing.
You know what's interesting to me is, like, when I moved here, I started talking, because I always called this a comedy podcast, but really it's mostly musicians back. I'm from Flint, Michigan. So I lived in Swartz Creek. I moved to Flint 2020, then moved to Chicago in like 2023. And so anyway, I would do the podcast with mostly musicians or interviews with musicians mainly. And then when I moved here, I started actually talking to comedians mostly. And what's interesting about comedians is that they tend not to have started their dreams when they're young. It's almost always like, oh, I was 20, I was 25, I was 30. It's never I was 12, I was 10. But you see that with musicians all the time. Musicians tend to figure it out kind of early. And I just think that's that's why to me it's always interesting to ask a comedian, like, what went wrong, like, why are you here doing this? Because it's always like, I tried to be 3 other things. Like, I feel so lucky that I found music. I always think about it that way. Like, I don't even know how it worked, how I stumbled into figuring out what I wanted to do, and like you said, like, defining my identity. Like, I don't know how I figured out how to do that, but I'm so thankful I did, because I literally couldn't imagine what life would be like any other way.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, it's impossible for me to know. And I wouldn't want it to be any other way. And I think that's like what finding your thing is. And I think that's why it's always interesting to talk to people who know so much about something, because it's like, it just is a testament to how much people care, like how much you can care about one particular thing,
how much a person can care about a thing. But everybody has that, and not everybody finds it. And so to that point, I'm always grateful that music literally saved my life. But I also think doing so many things that I cared about as much as I care about music made it more appreciable how it stands alone as an art form and as a mode of expression and all of those things. It's like, wrestling is an art form. I express myself through it all the time, but it was very clear to me at the end of my competitive wrestling experience that how people interpreted that was always going to be different from how I did it.
What do you mean?
I think, like, first of all, if you only watch me wrestle, you'd assume I'm a much different person than I am. But also, I think, like, there's always more going
wrestling,
on.
you're just like foaming from the mouth.
But I also there's much more going on than the variables that people try to reduce wrestling to. And I think wrestling is just now starting to reconcile with that. But I cared about it in a way that honestly terrified me. But the reason that I cared about it that much is because I used it as a mechanism of, like, not even just discipline, but disciplining myself. And so, like, it's by nature of that fact, people wouldn't even know why I did what I did, let alone, like, connect the dots between the person who's doing the thing and the thing being done.
Right.
And outside of that, I think, like, I walked in a party one day and there was a guy who was just randomly there talking about how he would have beaten somebody at the state tournament. And it just so happened that person was me. That happened like a year ago. He was just like, oh, I would have beat that guy. And they were like, he's right there, right? And he clammed up. But, like, it's just like, there are things like that where you would never understand what my baseline is just based on the highlights or lowlights that you were able to see in my career. You wouldn't know that I was getting up at 5 a.m. before our 7 a.m. workouts before school, like to do, and then working out after extra. You would never know how much I was running, how much I was doing, how much I sacrificed and how many of those things informed not just how I did the thing, but how nervous I was about it. Like how many people there were who it felt like my success depended on, who didn't care if I won or lost at the end of the day, but it was honoring the sacrifice that they made for me to be able to even be able to do the thing.
Yeah, like, do you think by looking at things in an elevated way like that, it makes you take it more seriously?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, but I think, like, all things aren't meant to be, at the end of the day, it's a sport.
Yeah.
So it's not meant to be taken that seriously. But I know that the better I get with words, the better I can figure out how people receive them.
Right.
And by nature of that fact, the more carefully I can craft things that I know are being heard, either just for myself, or I know things are being heard by people in a way that they are used to receiving, either from me or somebody else. And the better you get at wrestling, it doesn't necessarily go that way. Or the better you get at, school even. I think if you look at my GPA from college, you would think I was a really good student, but you wouldn't know that, like, I only had 2 grades that were below a B, and both of those were times where I had to, like, take finals concussed. It's like, that doesn't show up on paper. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It is the experience that it is, but everybody has their own individual war wounds. I know people who lost family members, who had, mental health episodes, who have whatever. Everybody has their own layers, but it always is reduced to the experience being the finish line. And music isn't that. And so it is distinct in the way that I have the ability to use it as a form of expression that actually does say what I'm trying to say. But the eternal process is saying it in a way where I feel like I've said all I need to say, and everyone receives it in the way that I intend them to. Or doesn't. In the way that I intend for them not to.
So that's interesting. I mean, do you liken music to a painting in a sense, where it's like you could interpret it your own way? Like, we can all look at a painting and interpret it our own way, and no way is wrong? Or is there a proper way, do you think, like with music, do you think it can be more defined? I
think it can be more defined because music is something that's so metric. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to ask the question of whether something is good or not.
Yeah.
Is it technical?
But I think things can be technically good or bad, and I don't know if that's necessarily related to how, like, spiritually profound a song is, or like how much it might affect somebody. Like, there could be a song that's very technically bad, but it still resonates with people in tons of ways.
Yeah, but is it not technically bad on purpose, or is the way that it's like there's layers to that too?
There's layers to it. Yeah,
I think the intentions of the artist are more important than the degree to which they're good. The question is just like, how close are you to doing the thing you think you're doing?
Right.
And that's something that can be measured in a way.
That's a great way to put it. How close are you to doing the thing you think you're doing? Because I think, like, people who tend to be the best at things just have a really good vision. They know exactly what they want to do, and then they do it. Yeah. And, like, the people who don't do that just don't stick out in the same way because their vision's not as clear. And, like, to me, those are the people I look up to the most. They're the people who have the clearest, like, sharpest vision, where it's so obvious. Like, that's why great directors are the best directors, because what they're doing is not just simply making a movie. They are guiding an entire experience towards whatever they want it to be. And if they're really good at what they do, it'll be distinctive every time. And like, this director will develop their own style. And it's like, even though they didn't write the script, even though they're not all the actors, everything feels a certain way. Right. And I think that there's something to be said about that. Just like the ability to, and I think, like, even when you say about, like, words and communicating, I heard someone say once, like, the best thing you could possibly do is learn how to communicate, because that's, like, gonna make 90% of your life better. Like, just learning to communicate your ideas out of your head into the world is the beginning of so much. Yeah,
I think a lot of people think about communication as being the process of learning how to say things you don't say best to people who would receive them the way that you already communicate them. Yeah. And it's so much more complicated than that. Like, realistically speaking, you're not an effective...
It's translating.
Yeah, you're not... Yeah, exactly. You're not an effective communicator until you can communicate better with the people with whom it's easy to communicate, and also communicate in a way that reaches people for whom it's difficult to communicate. And,
both, yeah.
And I think that takes...
in a universal sense.
Right. And that's not always, like, the same degree of, like, succinct or effective.
Yeah.
But it's
and there's no right way to do that either. Like there's different ways. Like sometimes you'll meet a person who communicates completely different, like in a way that's foreign to you, but it seems to work for them.
Yeah.
And so there's always a different way.
Exactly.
I mean, that's one thing that always boggles me, is that there isn't like a proper form of community. I don't think there is.
No,
and
of course not.
In my mind, I think people get too, like, the reason people they have a lot of awkwardness with, like, in like the interview world or all, like podcasting, all this, you'll see like people be awkward. I think most of it is just they try too hard to not be casual, and they try too hard to be serious, and that just comes off as weird, and it never gets addressed. And like, I think there's a certain amount of casualness you have, like you have to treat people the same way that you would treat other people. And like if it's a business interview, you still kind of have to act like it's your friend, because that just creates this unspoken thing that people feel more comfortable. But you'll see it a million times. It's just, to me, I think it's like the number one thing that'll ruin interviews and stuff, is people just try too hard to present themselves a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's an error in communication in my mind. It's like you are looking at this, you're putting too much thought into this. Like you should just try to roll off the tongue and just do that, and I guarantee it's going to go better than if you try your best to seem proper.
But even that feels too general, because it's like, for some, again, it's like art, right? Communication in itself is less of a question of what you have the ability to communicate than it is like how close you are to what you think you're doing.
Right.
Like a Vince Staples interview is going to go different with a different interviewer every time. Is it going to be the same with Z-Way as it will with Vanity Fair? Probably not.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not going to do an interview the same way every time.
Yeah.
I think about it sometimes. I like to be prepared, but it's not like I'm coming in here with a script either. It's like, as far as communication is concerned, and even with podcasts, it's like you gotta know how much you want to do,
right,
and what you want to do, what you hope to effectively accomplish. I came here wanting to have a good conversation, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, like clear vision.
Yeah, but it's like I didn't plan to tell people not to have dreadlocks in 2026. You feel me? Like that wasn't in my plan.
Would it be hilarious if you had notes and that was on there? Like it was something you had to get to.
What you mean? What I'm trying to say is, it's, you know, some people got to work hard to be funny. Some people got to work hard to be comfortable. Like it's whatever it is.
You're right. I'm speaking in a broad sense. What I said before is probably even more true. That there is no right way to do it. There really just isn't.
Yeah. But with there not being a right way to do it, there is a right way to do it if you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Which is just like, again, Jackson Pollock is just as much art as, you know, Pablo Picasso is. And they're not as far as there are other examples, of course.
Yeah. I mean, film is a great thing.
Film is a great example.
You could look at Fast and Furious is not doing the same thing as Citizen Kane.
It's not doing
just
any,
not.
Yeah,
but that doesn't make it a worse movie.
It's a different scale. Yeah. Exactly. If you're talking about impressionist versus, you know, hyper realist modernists, it's gonna be different how that standard is applied.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me how a photorealistic painter would paint something versus how somebody is gonna draw it on an iPad, in many cases, what I'm looking for is how close to realistic it is relative to a photo. You know what I mean? That's objective.
Yeah.
Once you apply a condition, it's not as simple as saying best, but if you're saying like who combines the greatest number of original words, like there's a person who does that by hundreds of words. If you're talking about who combines the greatest number and most complex rhyme schemes, you know, that's hard to codify. I have my answer to that question, and I think there are two ones that I would accept. But there's a lot of people who get into that conversation, but it would be objective if you were to highlight those things, number them, and assign names to those techniques, right? So
yeah,
what I always ask the question of is like, if your message is clear, what do you intend to do with it? And if you think that's being done, is that something that's connected to an action that isn't speaking or listening? And like, for example, like there's a lot of music that encourages calls to action, right? How comprehensively do you understand what it is you're asking people to do?
Calls to action like what?
Anything. Like I think one of the biggest things that has been permeating the city, I think, for the last 20 years of music is conversations surrounding violence and its promotion.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like, I think in order to effectively curtail that violence in a way that only language can, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That only language can be applied to. I think you have to, at the very minimum, understand why the violence is happening and to whom.
Yeah.
And from which set of variables this set of conditions arises. I think there's more that people should do, but should is a mixed bag, and it's always somebody's individual opinion.
Yeah.
But I think at the baseline, you have to understand what's happening and not just be like, them people got to stop.
Right.
Because, like, yeah, but why? Why aren't they? You know what I mean? Like, what is motivating?
It's just like, it's like saying bad things are bad, you know? Like
and that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And then some people yell that bad things are bad, and they're like, why aren't you yelling? And it's just kind of like, I've known the whole time and would like to change it.
You ever see the show The Wire?
Yeah, of course.
I think The Wire, of all shows, like, it really just kind of, if it does anything well, I think it depicts like, especially season 4, where you see the schooling issues and all this. Like, it depicts the kind of broken homes and the types of things that will drive people to a crime environment.
Yeah.
I think that show depicts that in a human way that is understandable to people. Because I think, like, it's more of just like the story of, imagine you grew up with that type of environment surrounding you.
Mm.
You probably would act a lot like that. You know, like, you like to think like, oh, that's wrong. Why would they do that? But that's not, evil is never that simple. Like, you're never the villain of your own story. You never think you're doing the wrong thing.
Oh, some people are. More people than you think. And that's also part of the story. I think, like,
that's a good
one,
point.
the thing that people didn't learn from The Wire that I wish they did is how distinctly Baltimorean it is. But two, because it is regional. It is making a regional argument.
Yeah.
But two, the thing that I know that most people did receive about The Wire, which is why it's received its acclaim, is just how complicated life can be. A communicated and incentive balance that applies to intelligent and unintelligent people in all societal strata, for the most part. And it's not conjectural. It's people are fictional, you know what I mean? But it's not a working theory. It's just like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes saying it is what it is enough. But I think the understanding of the condition at a base level is what gives you the ability to communicate it in a way where they put out The Wire, it did what they thought it was doing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There are a lot of shows that have tried to be The Wire since.
Yeah, and often it just doesn't hit the same way.
Not the same way.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, there's an ingredient missing, and it's still delicious. But, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's you can't do that again.
No.
And you can't do that again in a different place, and you can't pick it up and do a different thing. I think fewer cities have had the treatise on identity that The Wire has had the opportunity to communicate as possible.
Yeah.
Fewer cities have had that than should. And Chicago hasn't had that yet, but insofar as we have a cross-section of the city every couple of years, we do that pretty well. Like, The Bear is a good one. Like, Shameless to people was a really good one. I know Southside to certain people or The Chi have been good ones. But there's nothing that's quite as comprehensive because it doesn't deal with as many levels without, like, sensationalizing them.
Yeah. And Chicago's got its own set of issues for sure.
Yeah, but it's just like, if you actually wanted to make something that was about, first of all, Chicago is too political to do that with. Like, if you wanted to talk about how rife with political corruption Chicago was,
you'd probably die just for making the show. I mean,
who's gonna greenlight it though?
Yeah, who's gonna greenlight it? How are you gonna get this off the ground floor? And once you do, who's gonna protect you? You know, like,
somebody really smart has thought to do it before. And if we're asking the question of why it hasn't happened yet, it usually isn't because that script isn't out there.
Yeah, the last thing you saw was Lori Lightfoot. It's so funny to me, like, imagining Chicago as Arkham City. It's just Batman. Like, we're just literally in Batman.
Yeah,
because they provide you Batman villains for leaders. It's crazy.
It's Gotham. I think it's a lot easier to be perceived as a Gotham villain with suits that size.
Yeah,
I do think that. I saw Marvel villainy in that. I saw Wilson Fisk in those suits, and I think
I almost feel like she was leaning into it.
Yes, she was, and it was good for social media. But there were people in cities nothing like Chicago sending me Lori Lightfoot memes.
Yeah.
At which point I was like, this has gotten too far.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, and like people who don't live in Chicago will believe whatever the media says about Chicago,
Yeah.
and generally
And
that's
our
you're going to
electeds.
get shot if you go outside and take 3 steps, and I mean whatever else they're saying.
somebody might,
Yeah.
but I haven't. And I'm not assuming that I will. Like, the thing about Chicago is, like, the places have a rhythm. You know, like, there is an operating rhythm of most places. If things look hotter than usual, I'm probably not going. If my neighborhood is moving faster than it normally does, it doesn't move that fast. I'm probably staying inside. And I'm going to ask somebody what's going on who will have the answer. And I know who those people are because I've been there for 30 years just about. Not completely, but just about. And so, like, yeah, I don't know. I think the mythos of Chicago is so comprehensive that it's hard to show the city for what it is without pissing somebody off, because it's so complex.
Yeah.
And there are just demographic things about it that people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, Cook County is the blackest county in the country.
Is it
People
really?
do not talk about that
What?
in the slightest.
I did not know that
In
at
the
all.
slightest. I mean, there's a
In the
pattern in so
country?
much data. Yeah, in the county
In the county.
of counties. Yeah, we're comparing counties.
I'm just thinking about that.
It's the highest concentration of black people in the country.
Why? I wonder why.
It's a big city, and a lot of black people live here.
I guess so.
But relative to the state population, it's like most people who live.
I would
in Illinois.
honestly, I'm surprised there's not more Latin Americans than black people, because I see so many Latin Americans in Chicago. Like, if I were to try to guess, I would say that they would be the highest demographic, just out of pure experience, what I've seen. But I also live in a neighborhood full of Mexican restaurants, so I may be biased.
it's a little different. Like, if you're talking about concentration, we also, like, my neighborhood is right next to the largest Mexican neighborhood in the city. But, and I shouldn't even say neighborhood, I should say community, because it's a body of neighborhoods with, like, overlapping municipalities. But it's interesting, just if you think about how big the city is and how many people are where.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The city is huge. The South Side is huge. There's hundreds of blocks. Oh my God. And then there's the South suburbs, some of which are still in the county. And then you think about what the densest areas in the city are and how that housing is developed. It's like, house by house is not going to be the same as, like, stacking people historically for the better part of the last 50 or so years on top of each other.
Yeah.
Which again has developed into its own system of how properties are managed, but it makes sense that Cook County is the blackest county.
I wouldn't have guessed that, though. That is interesting. Or even just, like, because there's so much immigration into Chicago too, so I'm just surprised that, because I mean, I don't know, like, I've heard, like, surprising numbers with even, like, the amount of, I want to say, Germans in Chicago. Maybe it's German. It was some random one, though. I'm probably getting it wrong. But
People
just-
move together.
Yeah,
but
people-
the Great Migration was not. It was not people moving to one neighborhood.
No.
and that's why
Yeah.
we got a lot of folks from Mississippi and Tennessee who are exchanging addresses on the west and south side.
Yeah. People move together. You learn that when you grew up in Flint or Detroit, because it's a rust belt for a reason. Everybody moved out in the 60s. Everybody just left all at once.
Yeah.
That's why those cities kind of suck now.
And
Detroit's all right, but it's in recovery.
It is certainly in recovery, but a lot of people they lost their livelihoods or gained new ones or mobilized their livelihoods and abandoned their cities.
Yeah.
And it isn't just like there's no infrastructure for that sort of abandonment, especially if it's complete resource withdrawal.
Yeah.
And that's how my neighborhood was shaped. Once any black people moved, everybody got out. And so a lot of our history is still what happened since then and what happens when you put people who, historically speaking, you're not the most fond of, in places at one time where you put other things. And what those other things are depend over time, but they usually tend to be things like factories and property that the people who would like to purchase them, who are adjacent to them, cannot purchase.
Yeah. So with your music, what would you say you're seeking to achieve then? Like when you write a song, like what is your goal with music?
Doing what I think I'm doing.
Doing what you think you're doing. And like, do you look at every album like that? Like when you start a new project, do you have like a whole vision kind of planned out of what it's going to be? And do you think about it that way? Like you plan things out?
I do, but I also make so much more music than ever makes projects. And it's not because I don't intend for it to, but it's because I view music as business and music as, if not expression, then some mechanism of having fun as being different things.
Yeah.
And business isn't fun. If you're a business-minded person, it can be fun when you win in business.
Yeah.
But like business itself is not like, there's nothing fun that's endemic to business that isn't related to money.
Right.
Which is its own set of issues. But I think music in itself is so fun for me. I'll just have a bad day, and I know the only way that I'm about to get out of that is to make a song. And I've made so much music over so much time, and I do it pretty quickly. So now I'm better at expressing that exactly.
Yeah.
Or finding new ways to do that. Like I won't just be like, I need a beat that sounds like how I feel, I'll make it. Or I'll say I want a beat that has roads. Or I'll say this is an artist who's expressed emotions that I'm trying to express. So how do they write songs like that when they make sonic choices like this? And so with my process, really all I'm trying to do is unspool my internal monologue and do it in a way that's most authentic to the way I first thought it.
Yeah.
But also do that in a way that demonstrates the technique that I understand, and might make, in broad part, it might just be me expressing whatever I would have written in a journal, but other times it can be the purpose of structuring an allegory. Or, I think I want to write a song that's a story today, or I think I want to write a country song, or I want to write a rock song, or I want to write an R&B song, or I want to write and I do all of those things when I have the feeling to do it. That's the most important thing about music to me, is caring enough to be able to respect the art well enough to do it well, but also understanding it at depth enough to know like why I would choose each of those things in any of those states, and what would make somebody do the same thing if I'm writing that way.
Yeah. So you like kind of like following your intuition in a sense?
When I'm creating, yes, but not even necessarily my intuition so much as my hunches. It's not, I think of it more as like choosing the game that I'm going to play at recess than I do like going with my gut, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I just get better at kickball or football or, I know what I'm going to do when I'm on the jungle gym, but it's not quite so much that I'm like, today feels like a rock day. It's just like I'm spinning a wheel in my head, and what am I going to do based on that?
So if you're doing something that you don't normally do you ever find yourself like not like writer's block, but like struggling to write it? Like, is it like, oh, I really don't know how to approach this?
Honestly, no. And I'm thankful for that. Like, there are times when I just don't feel like writing, when it isn't the day to do what it is that I wish it was the day to do. It doesn't really feel like a block, because my process is, it's at least weekly at this point, but like, I was really thinking about it. I was like, man, I haven't recorded in a long time. Lost my headphones, wasn't able to use them. Recorded a couple songs with latency. I look back, I made 3 songs this week. I'm like, again? You know what I mean? And I love them all. I think they're really good, and I want to put them out at some point. So I don't really get blocks with stuff like that. I think a lot of times if I have the idea, I'll just listen to a couple artists who I feel like influence my desire to make that work, given the fact that it's all based on music I've heard. But I don't really struggle with it so much, because I know I've listened to so much music in my life, and I love so many different types of music. I have to study them in order to understand them and understand the way the artist wanted to make them. But that informs my ability to do it as well. It's like if I'm thinking of I'm like, I want to make a D'Angelo song, but I kind of want to do it with Miguel tone, and I think it'd be cool if I had a rap verse in there somewhere. I'm going to think about songs that are like that. But foremost, I'm just going to think about my memories with those things.
Yeah.
And mobilize those memories more than I'm getting stuck.
So you said that earlier, that he taught you that in that class, to use your memories. What do you mean use your memories? Because do you mean like when an actor is like channeling an emotion? Do you mean it like that?
To some extent, but what I was most speaking toward was was the fact that he told us to write specific incidents. It wasn't necessarily memories so much as it was the specificity of the incident.
Okay.
I think great writers have the ability to decide the extent to which they zoom in on a moment. I know that I'm good at writing because I could write you a song about picking up a pencil and make it sound like something entirely different from that.
Right.
But I would also put you in the moment of having picked up that pencil and realizing the fact that that was what I was writing about.
Yeah.
It can be as dumb as that, or it can be as macro as my frustration with how theory has been applied over different countries and who's lying about what.
Right.
But I think specificity of incidents gives you the ability to not have to operate on a macro level where you're rapping about rapping or saying something that somebody else said or whatever. It's like it has to be clear that you're intentional about what you're doing, but also putting you in the room and describing that my hand is going up to the microphone to move the microphone closer to my face is more effective than just being like, I moved the mic and my voice got louder. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And even that is more specific than being like, people be sitting down on podcasts. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's so specific incidents mean just where, like, who, what, when, where at the moment.
Interesting. So there was two things I read. I don't know where the book is. It's got to be around here somewhere. But it's a book about like just how to speak publicly. And two things that he said in it, like I always think about just in terms of communication in general. And one is specificity in terms of like people, places, things, like all of that. Just always, if you can, don't say someone once told me. Say so-and-so who works here and does this once told me. Like, always say the details if you can. Because it's not like getting bogged down in the details. It's like it makes what you're saying so much more significant and specific. And also to speak in images. And the comparison he made is like about like all metaphors are images, and we think in images. That's how we think. So when you speak in images, you're speaking in a way that appeals to the imagery that people think in, because you think in images, then you translate it to words. And so when you say something that's an image, it's almost like it makes more sense by explaining it that way, because we all understand a metaphor and an image. We get that something can represent something else. We all can get that. And to me, it's just like those two things are so effective. It's like, especially with rap, like speaking in imagery in hip hop does amazing things. Like, because it's almost like you're doing a magic trick. Like you're getting them to see what you want them to see.
Exactly that. And I think like depending on how much detail you want people to see, the specificity of the incident matters.
Yeah.
But the point that Mr. Khan was making in walking us through that was exactly both of those things combined.
Yeah.
The fact that the specificity of the incident renders the image, but also the details are what distinguishes how that image can be communicated, right?
Right.
And so it's like the only way that you are going to be able to fully render your experience is to put yourself back in a moment. Or to think about the things that constitute being within that moment, which takes a bunch of writing exercises or whatever. Just like
it's like a certain type of brainstorming.
Yeah, prompts put you in a position where like if you want to mobilize what you learned about that, you can, because you have enough practice with how you thought about how to approach that.
That's interesting. Yeah, like placing yourself in a moment in a sense, like realistically doing so, like not just play acting and pretending, but really putting yourself there.
Yeah.
Because that's where the authentic thing's going to come from. Yeah. And I think that's like the most powerful stuff, is coming from something real and tangible that's like from your life and your perspective. Like to me, that's why hip hop in particular is so cool, is I think that there's something that you have the opportunity to do, like you, in the same way that public speaking or poetry is, where it's like you can represent something so unique to you if you do it right. Like and people will know exactly what it is, and it'll resonate with them, and they feel it in them, but it's still so you. Like that's why there's that the the stigma that will never die against not writing your own raps, because in the original sense, you wrote your own raps because you were the MC where all of this propagates from. You're proving that you have that skill. Like
if you wrote them. Which made it more personable when it wasn't written, because it was like, oh, this is the illest cat that can make the DJ look better.
Exactly.
It's like, hip hop has always revolved around the DJ, but not just as the DJ's importance is as the master of ceremonies, even as the MC is the person speaking.
Yeah.
Like it's like being the Wizard of Oz in front of and behind the curtain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just in the truest sense, the ability to most accurately render what it is that someone intended or someone can see is the skill that I think the entertainment industry values most, which is why actors and musicians at the highest level can be so similar, because eventually you are playing a character so much that you don't even know. Like
right.
Music can be method acting if you lose the pulse of who first was making the music, which is very easy to do with, capital incentives. And so, yeah, I think it's very much the same thing, but it's it's strangely more important that we have a grasp on it at this level than it is at a point of celebrity, because the thing that you have to understand then is influence for its own merit, which either can be weaponized, which is easiest, or it can be mobilized, which takes forethought.
Yeah.
Most
influence for its own merit, as opposed to what?
As opposed to, like, think about the difference between how you see Beyonce now versus how we would have seen her when she was doing Nintendo DS commercials.
Right.
It's like what your words are even matters more when you aren't saying any of them to anybody publicly.
Yeah.
And so, like, now you see Beyonce touch somebody, they lose their mind. Chance the Rapper at the Grammys, Beyonce come up to congratulate him. He was, oh, that was Beyonce. Like, because Beyonce patting you on the shoulder, regardless of how fine she is, because it's a lot of great looking women in the world.
Yeah.
Beyonce patting you on the shoulder is worth everything because she doesn't do it to everybody.
Yeah.
That's how you wield influence for its own merit. Now, granted, Beyonce is very aware of how to create an album. Her vocal technique, vocal production is incredible, but she doesn't have to write those records anymore, and she doesn't quite often. And the fact that she can make a song that a homeless man made about breaking up with his girlfriend sound in her voice like it's about her husband cheating on her, on the same album that she made to make them both money about her husband cheating on her. Not only is that acting, but it's an understanding of which of those dials you're moving at the moment.
Yeah.
She can be innovative at the same time as she can compile a bunch of innovative things into a project in a way that no one else could.
And that's what makes her her.
That's what makes Beyonce Beyonce, and there's only one Beyonce, but everybody think they Beyonce.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You can either wield it as a weapon or you can mobilize it, which in the sense that you're Beyonce, mobilizing it is having a whole camp of dancers, singers, writers, entertainers, the best show on earth, create $1,500 concert performances.
Yeah.
And is it worth that much? A lot of people who go say yes. I'm not paying it. Sorry, Beyonce. I know you're not gonna see this.
Come on, just sell your card. Just go to the concert.
Yeah. So miss my mortgage payment. But yeah, I just, that's what I mean. I think you're mobilizing something different. You're trying to understand response as opposed to trying to incentivize response to happen at the right time for the reasons that you choose.
Yeah, and I think it's a lead by example type of thing. Like, I think it's one of those things where the true test is when you get the influence you so desire, and then what do you do? Like, do you then fall into the trap and do the same thing everybody else does and just shill yourself out for any which thing that comes your way? Because we all want to succeed, and we all want money, and we all want to be acknowledged in our success. So I would never blame someone for going that way, but the more respectable, harder thing to do is to be the person you always were, and to, like, I think that you're a tastemaker in a sense. You're like a curator. And one day this occurred to me, like, I think everything is curation in a sense. And so none of your ideas are truly original. Nothing you're doing is not been done before, but you curate things into whatever you curate them into, and you become known for your taste. And so it's like when you're a celebrity, people associate your work with your taste, and then they respect your opinion. And so if you then utilize that and just sell them a product that has nothing to do with you, I think that's almost kind of like turning your back on these people who believe in you and they like you and they trust you, and you're just selling them whatever. It's like, I would never want to sell sports betting apps. I've thought about that. Like, that's something where, oh my God, wouldn't it be great if they just offered me a bunch of money and I could just sell sports betting apps? Because that's realistic within podcasts, within social media. That's where they advertise. But I would never want to do that because I think sports betting is just fundamentally a bad idea. And I think it sends people down terrible paths. You're basically making gambling a phone app is what you're doing. And that is a wild thing to do.
It is crazy.
But in today's modern day and age, I guess that's just normal and accepted. So to me, I would never want to endorse that, because I would never want to make someone who respects me think I think that's a good idea, but I can understand the financial incentive of wanting to do so.
And it always is more enticing the longer you've been doing something.
Exactly. And it's like, what do I have to lose?
But what? Is it eating crow? Is it having a bad record contract? Is it having a good record contract?
Right.
Is it being used to having a good record contract and having no record contract? Is it having a bunch of brand deals you didn't understand because you were a teenager and you really liked the stuff, and then at the end of it you realized it was hurting somebody?
Yeah.
Is it not having brand deals? Is it losing brand deals because you're doing the things that you would normally do, which you wouldn't want people to see you doing, but they're actually parts of your identity, so you can't get rid of it? Like, it's always, even within the capital structure, you can't blame the structure entirely for what happens, but it is the most natural pattern of most people's autopilot to fall into what it is that they become accustomed to.
I think that's why, like, Beyonce is the only Beyonce. Again, it's like, it's hard to break out of that and actually maintain some type of integrity because it's so stacked against you at all times.
Yeah, even if the only integrity is artistic, and I'm not saying that about Beyonce because I do not know Beyonce. She got too much money for me to think about anything she got going on. And to be honest, I have too little money for Beyonce to be thinking about anything that I got going on. And that's okay. We live in a society that pits those things against each other. But it's like you never even know if somebody's selling out or saving their own life because it's what it is.
Yeah.
Artists don't get health care. Like, what are they supposed to do? Why would you... turning your back on your fans is one way to think about it, and I understand it completely. But it's like, I think part of the point of Stan was, when does that go too far? Like, if that is a responsibility that we have to fans, is it also our responsibility to communicate to them that it's a job?
Right.
And at the point at which it's a job for somebody who's signed or not, because it can look different ways, particularly in Chicago where there's no label infrastructure. Like, or at least no major label infrastructure. There's label infrastructure. But
yeah, but it's not at all comparable to, like, these big music cities.
No, it just puts you next to them sometimes. But it's like, how do we show that this is a job to somebody? What is it? At what point is I'm just doing my job acceptable? And, like, I would argue for most people that point never comes. I personally don't think there's a point where I'm just doing my job is acceptable for an ICE agent. But, like, people draw that line at different points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and some people draw that line at the police firmly. Some people's drawing that line at the police is flexible depending on what jam they're in. But some people draw that line firmly. Sometimes it's pastors. And as a person who works in faith-based spaces, I have to understand that. Like, I'm not just going to posit that harm hasn't been done to you. Sometimes it's firemen or anybody who has a mustache resembling one. Sometimes it's barbers. You never know. Like, people got their things. But the fact of the matter is, I think, like, artists have a responsibility to render their experience authentically, or to stay true to the thread of their original intentions.
Artists especially.
Artists especially. I think everybody does.
Yeah, but artists are the ones who I think set the example.
Yeah, and since we're talking about it from that standpoint, I just think like it's hard to say where that line should be drawn for everybody, because the myth of individuality is something that permeates how we all create. And you wouldn't want to be a musician who had any more acclaim than you do if you didn't think for some reason that you were supposed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you didn't think for some reason that you would be a good person to have that with.
Yeah. It's a recipe for disaster.
And it is for everyone, because we all think we're better at what we don't have, better at managing what we don't have than we are once we get it. But I think in this particular instance where you're talking about people aligning with products or not, you got to remember that people are just people, and people will let you down.
Yeah.
And
I think to what you just said, like, I think you're a product of what you do, not what you say.
Right.
So you can tell me all sorts of things, but it's a matter of what you actually do.
Which will change.
Yeah.
And if records are to be treated as time capsules or time stamps or anything else temporal, then they also have to be recognized as being attached to dynamic people.
Yeah.
The range of and the range of that dynamism isn't really calculable. It's what you do and what you don't, and you got to live with it or you don't. And you've either done enough work for, and I say enough, of course, loosely, but you've either done enough work for people to love you through your controversy, or you lose your chance immediately.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough. It's tough. But I think artists have to do a better job of understanding listeners. And I think listeners have to do a better job of understanding artists' incentive balance. Like, artists are going to be jaded once they make it, because most of them have had people demonstrating, if not telling them directly, that they weren't going to or aren't on the path to doing the things that they care about.
Yeah.
But I think once artists have a fan base, they treat people as once artists have any fan base at all, and I hate this so much, people believe that the thing that they do is a gift to somebody for some reason in its own. Just like, I'm dropping this for you. Like, you didn't tell me why, you didn't tell me what, you didn't tell me, and now you're mad 36 people listened to it because they were curious what you had going on. And it's like, realistically speaking, we owe listeners that kind of experience that they crave.
Yeah.
It might not be telling everybody everything, it might not be showing everybody everything, but when people are like gone for a year and then they're like, I am giving you the gift of this music on March 25th.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be surprised when people are like, okay, so what?
Right.
What is it? Why should I care? There's so much music.
I think if you're the best proves they're the best always.
And
the best
like
is always trying to challenge themselves and become the better version of the best, because that's how you stay the best.
Right.
So, like, this idea that, like, you've already earned it and you're already the greatest of all time is like, it just goes against everything that you would be doing if you really wanted to be the greatest in whatever. Like, but it's so funny. Again, like, you get like 10 monthly listeners and you're like, oh, okay, this is something real. Like, you get 20 people who say they're excited to hear your next song, and now all of a sudden you have this whole different perspective. It's like,
and that is real.
What I don't understand about that is, I don't understand how people, like, I think people look at success wrong. Like, I think that they think it's literally like, one day I'm just gonna be famous. Like, one day it's just gonna flip and I'm just gonna be famous and I'll never have to work again. I'll never have to do anything again. I'm gonna be all done. Mm-hmm. And that is, like, not how it ever works ever. Like, pick any person, any celebrity, any musician, any artist. It's like they did one great thing, and then the question becomes, how are they gonna follow that up? And what are they gonna do next? And you're never done. And then you're constantly proving yourself against yourself. And that's just what it becomes. And so if you don't settle into that now, then you just have the complete wrong idea of how this whole thing's going to work. Like, you're not going to, it's not about just announcing you're going to drop your song, and everybody automatically likes it. You're constantly proving that people should like it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, to that end, it is very possible for that to happen. It's less possible because every single algorithm where music exists is not, like, rolling the dice on who's getting exposure the most. It's incentivized at this point. And once you hit a certain monthly listener threshold or overall listener threshold, you trigger discovery mode. So that just is what it is.
Yeah.
It's meant to incentivize growth past a point, but also to force you to have growth at a certain point, pay you pennies and then ask you to pay it. But it's
and pay it enough, and you'll get that growth even faster.
Yeah, look, man, you might get to access the fan base you built.
It didn't used to be so bad. Like, I remember a past when it wasn't so crazy. Now they just openly extort artists. It's nuts.
Yeah, and they'll tell you they're doing it, and it'll be, you'll get the same numbers all the time or whatever. It's just gonna be what it is. But there is lightning does strike still, and so I think everybody, because they recognize that they're not everybody, assumes that they're, I don't know, Chief Keef, Frank Ocean. Like, these are like things that the music industry has adjusted for, though. It's like, this hit us like a meteor. How do we stop that from happening again, so we don't give up this profit margin? Because this profit margin is gigantic.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh, he did that, so I can do that. That's not how it works. You just have to be willing. The thing that Dave Grohl said in his book that I always tell my artist friends is like, there's no point at which you can skip the part where you go through the shit. Like, you are going to be knee deep in it, and it has to happen. It's going to look different some way, but it's going to be somebody, the best show of your life, somebody's going to mess up your sound. You finally get booked for the festival, it's going to rain. Your USB dies on the day of your show when you got to call somebody and have all your songs sent over. You know what I mean? Your mic goes out in the middle of your performance, and you got to figure out how to go a cappella. Your sound goes out in the middle of your performance, and you got to figure out how to keep the crowd moving. You get somebody else's DJ, and they try to extort you on the day that they do your work. And these are just things that happen to me. Like, now, mind you, ain't nobody getting no bread out of me. But the point is,
and these are all, it just never ends. It's over and over and over again.
You have to do it. You have to do it until it refines your habits.
Yeah.
And you should value having done that, so you know how many mines you can step on in this minefield, so that once you do something yourself, or once you know how to approach a certain thing at the certain time when it does happen, it's less like winning the lottery than it is like getting in a casino and getting out.
Yeah, and when it falls into place, you appreciate it for what it is too.
And it doesn't have to stay that way.
Yeah.
It does not have to. You have to know, like, every Chicago rapper we love comes back to the crib for a reason. And and it's not because they can't succeed other places necessarily, although sometimes that is it. Sometimes it's just like figuring out how to operate the way you do here, which is where you feel like you're operating best. Someplace else doesn't work. But outside of that, it's like, because Chicago business is what it is, because we don't have the major structure, because the market is less attractive than other markets where direct investment can be more chartable, because of each of those things, we still have work to do. You know what I mean? You want to come home and be able to have a show like someplace else, but you come home when you feel like you having a pissing match with the next dude, because we in the third biggest city in the country.
Yeah.
and so, like, it's a cycle where if you break out, you're like, ooh, culture shock. But if you don't break out, you're like, I'm stuck. And then you end up just trading places until you figure out how to change one or the other.
Yeah.
And even then, that's not necessarily the answer, because, like, you might lose friends in the process of doing that. And it's like, is a Grammy better than your friends? Some people would say yes. A lot of people would say no.
Depends on the friend.
It does depend on the friends. That's what I'm saying. Some people would say yes. A lot of people would say no. I didn't necessarily say more. Some could still be a lot. But, it's the point of all of that really is just to say that the reason that the specificity of incidents in that paradigm is so important is because it's the only way that, you know, at least as a writer, you're staying true to your in-moment experience.
Right.
Even if it's retroactive. And I think, like, you might be bored by music that does that from artist to artist. I think a lot of people had a lot of things to say about, say, Pusha T's individual career. But you see when the clips is really rolling.
Yeah.
You see when clips is really rolling, like, every image. And if you don't see it, the video is going to be just as nasty. And that's just going to be what it is. They're going to put you in a situation where I know for a fact that Pusha T did not sell crack today. I know it. He might have sold cocaine, but I know for a fact he didn't sell crack today. And I think he didn't sell cocaine. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
Given the position that he's reached in his life and the importance of the tour with his former pastor brother. But the music that he makes puts you in a moment when he was doing that.
Right.
And you don't ever have to have clarity on whether that's something that's happening in the present moment or not. Solely because the image rendered is so useful, enough people just believe it in its essence.
Yeah. And it's so true to him. Like it's almost like professional wrestling in a sense where it's a lie, but it's true. Like it's both real and fake at the same time.
And the better you are at what puts you in that room, the more real it gets to be.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of guys who I know who are in the WWE who get to be really close to how they were as amateur wrestlers because they made it to the Olympics. But there are other guys I know who were in pro wrestling where they didn't have the agency to tell their own story because people were not looking deep enough into their story, but it wasn't one of the ones that's like super, super publicized. Yeah. And so like, if you're one of the ones that like you Google your name and it's going to be like you in the Olympic jacket, they're like, okay, maybe we can let him do what he does.
Yeah.
Or figure out a way to make that more marketable or like play up that market. You know what I mean? But in other senses, it's just like you're being true to a version of yourself that you can only refine at home or through the practice of combining your influences. But, ultimately, it's fiction as mobilized in a larger work of fiction.
Yeah. People don't realize how much. I mean, especially with like a company like WWE, like other companies now have made it more popular to identify yourself and carve your own name and be your own character. So that's definitely changed. And of course, Vince McMahon, the company transferring over to Triple H, that's also changed things. But it's still the same structure where if they tell you tomorrow that you're no longer a monster heel, you're going to come out and you're going to start disco dancing. You just have to go out and start disco dancing.
You disco man now.
Mm-hmm. And you don't get a choice. You don't get to say. You don't get to fight back. And if you do, that's viewed negatively in that company because now you're causing a problem. You're putting up a fight. That's what people don't realize about why John Cena is John Cena because he's such a yes man. It's actually ridiculous. Like John Cena would say yes to anything, and that's why he's the perfect guy to be John Cena. Like he's also just a great guy, but it's the fact that no matter what Vince told him, he would have done it. And just forever. That was his whole career till the very end. He was the perfect company guy. And wrestling is so much more politics than you'd ever realize. It's just so like much
every
more
other sport,
yeah.
Or any other entertainment discipline. It's the combination of sport and entertainment discipline at both of their apexes.
Yeah.
And it's both in equal measure also.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's like these are stunt people.
Yeah.
Combat discipline stunt people who are required to be in consistent shape. Maybe not the best all the time, person to person, but consistent shape.
Right.
In most cases.
They're expected to have a regular workout regimen. They're expected to tour almost all of the year. I mean, they have probably more expectations than most sports because it's so invasive in your everyday life.
Yeah, your body can't look different than an action figure, man.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Because we're selling those things.
We're selling that. They're going to be like, who is that? And that's not what we want.
You don't get to Marlon Brando out and gain weight. It doesn't work like that.
No,
here.
It don't work like that, man. It don't work like that till you've been in here for some time. You got to
imagine like Stone Cold just gets fat all of a sudden. We'd be like, who is that?
and if he did, he's put in his time. But you got to put in a dime at least. It's you're in prison. But yeah, I don't like how they doing West Side Gun either. But
but it is like and it's a sport that's so. I mean, what's so interesting to me about wrestling is how many ways it represents reality, even though it's not reality. I mean, like that's what's always drawn me to it. Is there's so many things like how you just compared the business aspect to all these other business aspects. Like it really is the same type of corporate structure as any other sport, and you're going to see the same types of politics and the same types of games that are played. It's just that these guys are doing some like coordinated dancing effort while also doing crazy athletic things
and real harm to each other.
And it's real improvisation too. The level of improvisation that they're at is on another level because you can't you can't plan a 20-minute match beat by beat. You just can't do that. So much of that's going to be, well, what do we do now? And like that's why there'll be one guy who can have a great match with anybody because really he's just a good dancer. He's really good at working with somebody else, and he can make the other person shine. And like it's just there's so many. Wrestling is so much more, and like how I always like to think about it is the storytelling aspect itself. And like I would explain like my name, Ruse. I like to think everything is a ruse, and everything is storytelling in a sense, and stories, and everything is how much you elevate something in your perception of it, and how much are you going to care about this. And wrestling's the perfect example because again, it's fake and real at the same time. And I think the best wrestlers are the ones who can, even though I know you're cutting a promo, and even though I know you're saying this to push an angle, and it's all about a match at a pay-per-view, I believe that you believe what you're saying. And like that to me is true to everything.
Music is always that way too, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't grapple with as creators. People are always, I'm so honest, I'm so authentic, I'm so like every writing vocalist is a liar.
Yeah.
And it's because your version of the story isn't the only one that exists, which is why the specificity of incidents, again, is important, because you could tell that from a different perspective in every sense, but it would still have to be what it was. And it gives you the ability to separate those perspectives for what they are. If you tell the story of you riding a bike down the street, you're going to talk about your hands on the handlebars, what streets you passed, the people you passed, the directions the cars are facing. There's only so much that you can talk about that would be your point of view experience. Whereas that same story could be told about someone passing the street, and you could describe the things in your room that you're looking past to see that person across the street. Same thing happening at the exact same point in time, but it renders a completely different experience for the listener, which is exactly what it is. It's like, if you know that two people are aiming to do the same thing, the value is in their perspective and their ability to improvise, which is why it's just combat jazz. But like, I think music in a way.
When I talked with Backpack Beats, he told me about how they do these. It's like a monthly. I think it's every November, but it's Beat November. Like I forget what he calls it, and they just make a beat every day.
Yeah.
And I don't hope I'm not crossing wires here. Maybe it's something else. But it's they'll send out one beat to everybody to sample, and you'll have 30 different ways that people are using the beat. But it's the same exact beat. So you would think there's a limit. You'd think there'd be a point where, okay, they're going to start doing the same things and it's going to be like the same loop over. But that doesn't, if you have talented people, that doesn't happen.
No.
Because their perspective is so unique and they're so good at picking things out that way. And it's, again, like curation. What do they curate for you? Like, what do they choose to show you? And it's those choices that define you.
Yeah. So I think that neatly kind of circles back to what my whole music philosophy is, realistically, which is just, I think, what's the best way that I can say this? My music philosophy is, I'm trying to think about how to wrap all those things into one thing. I had the phrase in mind, but it's the idea of contributing. It's kind of like academia in a sense, like you're contributing to a larger conversation that already happened. Right. It isn't the process of creating something that you like or that you think other people like or that it's like, if these people already have had this conversation, if it contains each of these elements already, am I adding to it or am I putting a drop in a bucket? You know what I mean? And I always try to make songs that I feel like are the combination of things that I like about things that I've heard that sound nothing like the things that I've heard. And insofar as they are referential to those things, you might place those references, but they expand beyond them.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's like a study that cites other studies. It's like I cite my work all the time, but I also am doing more work. And I am looking to disprove the hypothesis on a consistent basis of the fact that I'm going to be able to make a great song in any genre, or that I'm going to be able to accurately render the experience that I'd like to impart to somebody else, or just have the journal entry that I really wanted for the day instead of the one that skims the surface of what it is that I'm trying to express that I feel.
Yeah. and figuring out how to do that all the time, right? Just like constantly figuring out, how am I going to do that today?
Or the percentage that I do that. You know, I think I tell people in sport and in music, I think mastery is understanding a thing so well that if you think of it as existing between having done it 0% or 100%, you can hit every percent along the way if you choose to. So if I tell you I want to exercise 75% of my vocal capability, I can do that.
Right.
I can write a verse that's 75% accurate to MF Doom style. I can do that. Just like in a wrestling practice, I can say, let's try to go like 60%, and we'll do that.
I've never heard that before, but that's a really interesting way to look at mastery. The fact that you could pinpoint the percentage at which you're going to do it today. Like, this is a 30% song. This is a kind of easy one. This is my pop song. This is my 20% song.
But
we're gonna go easy
even with
on
that,
this one.
Even with that, it's not even so much that it's like what is this compared to my maximum effort, so much as it is like
Well, that's why I would say pop song. Because generally I think like a well-written pop song, it's not written poorly, and it's not, but it's written in a simple way. Like, there's a certain simplicity to pop music, especially when it's done right.
But I would say like word count would be what I'm what I'm looking at in terms of mastery in that case.
Yeah.
Like, am I exercising brevity, or am I trying to be as loquacious as possible on the record?
How much am I zooming in?
Right. It's like the difference between a pop record and a drumless loop.
Right.
Rap record. Like, am I trying to be Lupe Fiasco, or do I want to be Sarah Larson?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it is that. And I think once I'm like, okay, I want to make a rock song, that makes me put my brevity slider up. Where it's like, I need to say as much as I can in what ultimately would be as a verse, just 16 bars.
Right.
Or like for R&B records, it's like, I'm thinking, am I writing this like a rap record on purpose? Or am I writing this like a rock song on purpose? Which is where that slider comes, because it's like, if you assign that to each of those individual skills, there are certain things that those genres have in common that you then can mobilize within other genres.
Yeah, but it's the consciousness that allows you to do it.
Right.
Because if you aren't conscious of those things, you literally couldn't even make that choice.
Right. It's like, I can wake up one day and say, how would I write a rap song if I was Johnny Cash? You know what I mean? Like, and the point of that would be to say, what is Johnny Cash's writing style, and how could that be mapped on to hip hop at large? Not like, how could I write this from the perspective of Johnny Cash, which is more what Joyner Lucas would do.
Yeah. And I think like what's interesting is like, if you do that enough, you then, like you were saying, you learn to blend those things into something that's unrecognizable from the original thing. Sure,
because you know.
Because you know, yeah. And because you did the work to get to that point.
Yeah.
Like, so to the outsider looking in, it's just what you see on the face of it, but you don't see all those songs that were written to get to this song, and all those distinguishing factors that had to be made along the way just to know how to make this choice and how to make this choice. And it's like, that's why the best work almost seems seamless, and it seems,
or singular even.
Yeah, or singular.
But it's like it recognizes in itself that it isn't. So many of those Kendrick records are just straight samples.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The beats are literally just chops of the original that change very little about them. Sometimes drums aren't added. Sometimes and that changes, of course, from record to record. Like, GNX is not To Pimp a Butterfly, and it's not Good Kid, Mad City. But that's mainly, one, because Jack Antonoff produced it, and two, in large part, and two, just because it was a different time. But I think like the recognition of the fact that somebody might not notice what you're doing, like Jasmine Sullivan is a huge influence on my music, but I think when people listen to my music, they'll compare me to other people first. Right. Or like Mac Miller, for example. If you know how much I like Mac Miller, you'll hear that influence in the way that I write. But I don't get compared to white artists, because that's not what people are thinking about. Yeah. I know that though, which is why I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, they're not gonna know that the reason that I did this is because I was listening to so much Mac for the month.
They'll never catch me.
You'll never get me. Or I'll just riffs I'll grab from people who are experiencing legal issues. Boo them. But nah, it really. I think the combination of those things into something that is distinct takes the recognition of the fact that you're working with what's already there.
Yeah.
It's like thinking you made a color when you paint, as opposed to thinking about it as like, does this look like a Van Gogh? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I really want to execute a song to know if I can create. I have hyper trap stuff where I'm like, can I do that?
Yeah.
And then I found out I could, and I was like, okay, probably not gonna do that too many more times, but I got it. And can put it out.
See, now everybody's patiently waiting on your hypertrap album. They know it's there. They know it's
on the tape, man.
somewhere.
It's on the tape. It's on the tape. The tape coming whenever it comes is just punching people in the face as many ways as I can think.
Is that the name of it?
No.
That'd be a great title.
That'd be dope. Just made me mad. But Koi Fish already dropped songs to fight to, so I can't do that.
Yeah, we need more explicit fighting music.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pee real quick, and then we'll probably wrap this bad boy up.
For sure.
Normally, I would go longer. I have another person walking into this room in like 20-30 minutes. So I got to prepare myself, be zen, walk my dog one more time while I've got the chance, all those good things, you know. I like to overbook these things is what I do. I don't know if you do the same thing to yourself with music where you're just constantly doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I do.
I think it's like I would, and I try to surround myself with those people, like crazy people like me, because I know that like most normal people like try to have like work-life balance. I don't know what that is. I've never known what that was.
It's certainly not. I think I am beginning to conceptualize what it is and still not doing it. So
exactly.
not winning the battle, to say the least.
Well, it's a problem when you actually do like doing the thing. Like when you find joy and purpose in doing something, it becomes hard to not want to do that.
Yeah.
And so then like it's the balance of anything else with that. Because to me, I don't see the point. Like, why would I pursue anything else? What would I do? Every time I'm playing video games, I feel like I'm wasting my life. Like, what the fuck am I doing? If I catch myself scrolling, I'm like, I am the GOAT. I'm the greatest of all time. What the fuck am I doing on Instagram right now? This is a problem. And that becomes my framework of reality. So, yeah, maybe we'll get there. Maybe one day we'll have like 3 little kids and we'll be like, you know what? Maybe this music thing's not the only thing.
That just stressed me out.
Oh no,
we'll see.
He's having visions of his own right now.
Yeah, I don't need that. I don't need that. I need to figure out what I got. You said 3 little kids. I was like, oh, that's a world that could happen.
You ever think? See, I feel like I want kids, but I don't want them anytime soon. That's how I think about it.
If I love my homies who got kids right now. I don't know how y'all doing it, but if it happened to me anytime in a not so distant future. Yeah, we gonna see y'all later.
At the very end of the show, we do 2 things. All right. So one, the show's obviously for 3 to 5-year-olds. That's my core demographic.
Right.
It's they turn off Miss Rachel, they turn on this. That's how it goes.
I like that.
I'm a good role model. What can I say?
I appreciate that, baby.
And so, well, you know, as God-fearing folk, you know, you gotta do something for the man upstairs. So I speak and preach for the children. That's what I do.
I like that.
You know,
I like that. I see the vision.
I really like the idea of like talking to somebody for 2 hours about like the most heinous thing. We had a pretty upbeat conversation. We talked about, we were pretty positive. We were pretty motivational, but sometimes, you know, you'll just make like dick jokes for 2 hours and I'll be like, by the way.
I might do that next time.
And you know what? That'll be a good balance. Like this time we were serious. Next time it's just straight dick jokes all the way.
I almost got there with the locks. I thought I lost the plot for a second.
You know, I appreciate it. I think it's good. I think it's good we started with lock talk. Because the thing is, like, I've learned it's kind of how it works sometimes. It's like what I was saying about like being too serious and like communication. I think like it's like everybody's willing to play with you if you like show that you're willing to play around. And it's like a matter of that. And sometimes people just don't do it. And I've learned I had a guy on. I did 2 podcasts with him, and then he came up to me in person. He was like, "Hey man, like every time we do it, we're always talking all serious, like talking like philosophically about comedy. Can we just like not do that?" And it took him saying that to me to realize like, oh, he wants to do dick jokes. Like he doesn't want to.
Sometimes you got to get him off. I ain't got nothing for y'all. You know, I coach the youth.
He doesn't have any. You know why? Because his head's too big. That's why he's got no dick jokes.
None of them. It ain't nothing funny about that. Nothing funny at all. Everything below my waist is serious.
Oh,
it's not a good thing for anyone involved.
Sounds like a threat.
Sometimes it is, but never at the point of safety. You know what I'm saying? Just difficulty. Anyway, we got Rashawn Mosley. No, I'm playing.
Message for the children. See, this is how it goes. You say all that and you say it's for the kids, all right? The show's for the kids. Message for the children, so that way these kids can get off the school bus, take off their AirPods, stop listening to this, and go live their life with a nugget of knowledge, something usable, something wise coming from your brain. And second, the social medias where people can find you. This comes out like February 20-something, so if you got any events happening after that, this is where you plug them. You tell the people the places they can see your face. The floor is yours.
All right, look, young people, 3 to 5 year olds presumably.
Yeah.
But young people of all sorts, your role models are not perfect, but they're doing their best. So listen to them. You know what I'm saying? Don't do drugs. Stay in school. And then try to live like them. Unless they're terrible people. Don't do that. Just scrap all that advice.
Either do this or don't. All right, kids.
Either do it or don't.
The choice is yours.
But
And social media.
And my social media is GTVII73. Everywhere that's GT773. Because my rap name is 7. My initials are GT, and I'm from Chicago. That's all it is.
You know, it's so funny. Every time I would see that for until I actually I can't remember how long I thought this for, but the first time I saw your account, I was like, oh, GTA 7, that's a funny name. Mm-hmm. And it took me so many times to realize there was no A.
There was no A.
Yeah. Do you get that a lot? Does that happen?
Nah, but I get everything else, so don't even worry about it. People think my rap name is GT7. People don't know how to pronounce my name. People are like, is it V2? I'm like, if you got the 2, you should get the V. People have asked. I have a chain with the number 7 on it, and people will call me 7th, and I'm just like,
doesn't have the same ring to it.
It doesn't. That isn't to say that because 7th, the 7th wonder, 7th, who is a producer in at Studio Shapes, it's a great name, but it's not my name, and it would be different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm glad that
I tried.
I'm glad this happens to you often. You know,
it's too much. It's too much because it really is just a number, and you hear it a lot.
Yeah,
you see it every day.
It's a problem with like a basic rap name. Like my problem, Ruse, is I became a rapper like right at the same time as Russ. So you can only imagine my experience. It's like, oh, you're Russ, right? No. Ruse.
Ruse?
Oh, Ruse. They'll just keep saying Russ. So you can correct somebody 10 times and they'll still think you're Russ.
I know.
You just learn to accept these things.
Yeah, I'm everything to people. And
you allow it, yeah.
Yeah. Just after a certain point, I'm gonna just tell you my name, which
I'm V2.
I'm it's 2. It's 2.
I would just embrace it, you know. I have become Russ. It just is what it is, you know.
I don't know if I would embrace that. I'm not gonna lie. You're too tall to be Russ. I can be Russ.
Oh, okay.
I shouldn't.
V2. V2 sounds like you're about to rev up. You know.
It does. It sounds like a very inefficient engine.
Yeah. That V2 is my personal favorite because you're right. They got the 2 right, but they fucked up the 5. Which is just kind of funny.
And so for me, I just know people maybe they see back-to-back eyes more often, but it's like, what do you do when you see a grandfather clock? Like,
right.
That's when you pull up on Big Ben, are you gonna know what time it is?
Probably not.
You'll never know what time it is.
But that's a great way to get them to never forget. Is ask them a question like that, because then they'll see your name. They'll go, "What time is it?"
That doesn't help. They can't read the hands on the clock after that. So like that's not. There's a lot of things happening
like,
that
what
might
is
confuse
analog?
them.
You said analog clock. I've never heard of this analog thing before.
If it ain't this and it ain't that, they ain't got it. It's some people. I gotta meet them where they at. So it's 7. It is, and nothing against anybody who has 7 in their name. That's not my name, but that ain't my name though. V2, wherever you are loved, but it's not me.
All right, man. And that's the social medias. That's the message for the children. I think we've done it. We've done amazing things here today on
And that's the only way it can go.
clocking out.
Double down, competition couldn't help him to rock. Missed the whole time, holy fell through the flock. That's an ordinary miracle, wealth to the block. It's a balance in the character that's calm and collect. It's apparent his caricature is lost in the